So I'm a movies person, and I'm what I like to call myself an accidental social volunteer. How that actually came about, like I said, I'm a big movie buff. Movies, they make you dream, they make you cry. Lion King, when I was 8 years old, they entertain. Some are intentionally funny, and some unintentionally so. Some unintentionally so. But every once in a while, you tend to come across. Yeah, I know. Absolutely hilarious, man. Anyway, but every once in a while, right? So every once in a while, you tend to see a film that has such a profound impact on your life that it tends to change your entire outlook towards life itself. And that was how I actually chanced upon slum soccer and football, sport for development as a potential career. So I was going through this phase, excuse me. So I was going through this phase where I was, watching a whole host of football-related films. Damned United, Green Street Hooligans, Fever Pitch, the like. So I suddenly came across a film that was made by these two people, and I'm sure these two people have no idea who I am, and before this, I'm sure most of you don't have any idea who these people are. But in fact, I think these two people have probably had the biggest impact on my life solely by a creation of theirs, which was a film called Kicking It. Now, the film Kicking It is based on the Homeless World Cup, and it was shot in Cape Town in 2006. And it basically followed the lives of four people, a Spaniard, a Kenyan, an American, and a Scot. And it basically highlighted their life, what they were before, what kind of background they came from. And Homeless World Cup helped change their life. So that's a little bit of background into the film. I totally recommend watching the film. In case you guys are interested in football or films, which I'm sure most of you all are, I really suggest you take a look at this. So now, development through sport. I'm hardly an authority on the subject. I'm actually learning the ABCs myself. And, I was in the back room talking to Dr. Aladi, Aditya, and, these are people who've actually made such a huge impact in their fields, and they've actually mastered their fields. So what I'll be doing is I won't be lecturing you on what development through sport is all about. I'll probably give you, stories about amazing incidents that have happened in my life and special people that I have met over the past 3 years. So that's basically what my next 15 minutes is going to be all about. So, development through sport might seem like a new concept, but actually it's not. The first recorded development for sport event was probably all the way back in 1896, when, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, based on these three parts, started off an event which we now know as the modern Olympic Games. So development for sport has an ancient, background. So what I'll be talking about is a more contemporary version of it. In particular, three people who I've had the opportunity of interacting with, and three people whose stories have really made a huge impression on me and the way I think. So in 2001, Mel Young, who is the founder of this organization, co-founder of this organization called The Big Issue, he met another like-minded person called Harold Schmid, and together they formed what was to become the Homeless World Cup. It started off as a 20 team, 20-odd teams, and today it's grown to about 72 countries participating in this event every year. And India is one of the proud participants, and we actually do pretty well in the event every year. I'm sure most of you would know this incident, very, very sad incident in the history of football. That's Andres Escobar. He was a Colombian footballer in the 1994 World Cup. He unfortunately scored an own goal, and when he returned back to Colombia, in a bar outside in a place called Medellin, an assailant with a gun came, shot him 12 times, and each time he shot him, he said, "Goal, goal, 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 goal." So basically, he was shot for scoring an own goal and killed. One of Andreas Escobar's very good friends was this guy called Jorgen Greisbeck. And he realized that football can have, if football can have such a destructive impact, it can arouse such passions that people can, kill each other. Maybe it can actually help people help each other out. Maybe it can help people improve society as large. So he founded this organization called Street Football World. Now finally we come to the Indian perspective, and two people who I have been working with very, very closely over the past 3 years. The gentleman on the left, his name is Professor Vijay Barse. So he, when I saw Kicking It, the first thing I did was, I thought about the fact that it's a wonderful concept, development through sport. And it would really be applicable in India. I thought it would be brilliant in India. So one day I was sitting at work, bored, and I decided to Google the Homeless World Cup. And I figured out that India actually has a team. We've participated in about 4 World Cups, and we're actually ranked higher than Spain. Yeah. So he is the gentleman who started it all off. And I shot him an email, not really expecting a reply. 15 minutes later, I got a reply welcoming me to the organization. And the mails have just not stopped since. I've been interacting with him on an everyday basis. And the torch is now being carried forward by the gentleman on the right, his son, Abhijit, who's one of my closest friends. And I mean, the amount of thought that he puts into the entire concept and the ideas that he has are absolutely brilliant and really inspiring. And it's a real honor for me to work with people like this. So Abhijit, interestingly, the first thing I asked, can go back to the previous slide. The first thing I asked Abhijit when I joined the organization was, so who are our major partners? So he says, we have Street Football World. He says, we have, Homeless World Cup. And he said, there's also an English Premier League club which we are partners with. And I'm like, my ears perked up, and I'm like, so which one? And he's like, Tottenham Hotspurs. Okay, and I have that on my arm. I'm a committed Arsenal fan since 98, 99. And the point is, Arsenal and Tottenham are basically the India-Pakistan of football. Yeah. So if those guys saw this, they'd probably cut out all funding to Slum Soccer. But I guess I realized, that Tottenham aren't such a bad club after all. I'm probably the only Arsenal fan that doesn't hate the club. But, I mean, the work that they're doing with us is amazing. The amount of funding that they're pumping into Slum Soccer is absolutely brilliant. And it's just a wonderful family altogether. So, if I were to tell you a little bit about development through sport, the kind of work that we do, right? If you consider society to be a straight line, the kind of people worldwide who are impacted by development through sport typically would be recovering drug addicts, recovering alcoholics, children of commercial sex workers themselves, street paper vendors, people who live on the streets, slum dwellers. These are the kind of people that development through sport actually impacts. And these people are so far removed from the straight line that is mainstream society that the first aim of development through sport is to basically reintegrate them back into society. Yeah? So as a first step, that's what organizations all over the world have been trying to do. And as a next step, probably make them employable and self-reliant so that they can improve their lives and subsequently improve the lives of their communities. So this is what I thought football, could be used for. I didn't think that there were too many other avenues open for us to use football. But then, over my interactions with so many other people all over the world, there are 2 particular organizations which are really interesting. So there is this organization called Spirit of Soccer, which is based out of Cambodia. And the work that they do is basically using football as a tool to instill mind risk education in kids. Yeah. So there are about 1.2 million live landmines in Cambodia right now. And every day there are n number of kids who step on them and are blown to bits. So what these guys do is use football as a tool to give them mind risk education. They say, okay, if you find yourself in a minefield, you're the striker, right? So you need to move back to midfield, you need to move back to defense, move back to goalkeeper, turn around and run. So it's using formations, 4-4-2, 4-3-4, these kind of formations that they use to actually tell a kid how to get out of a minefield. That's absolutely brilliant, I thought. And the other organization is this organization called Mifalot, which is based out of Israel. They have in their programs kids from Jordan, kids from Palestine, and kids from Israel itself. So pretty much their aim is to promote cross-border peace. So if you just think about it, that's the gamut of causes that can be addressed using football as a tool. It's just absolutely brilliant, the amount of creativity and the amount of ideas and the amount of causes that football can actually impact in life. Success stories. We have Homkant here, and we have this beautiful young lady called Shahnaz. Now, of course, it might get a little heavy right now, but so Homkant, he's the head coach of Slum Soccer right now. 5 years back, he gets up one day. He's from Vidarbha. So 5 years back, he gets up one day and finds out that most of his family has committed suicide because they couldn't afford rates. That's enough to, mess with anyone's mind. So he runs away, comes to Nagpur, wandering about on the streets, hears about the program, just decides to join us on a kickabout. And at that point in time, he was so pitifully shy, he couldn't even look you in the eye. Today, he's right up there, hitting on the foreign volunteer girls that come in, talking to people in broad, widespread English with a smile on his face. And the amount of respect that he's earned, the amount of self-esteem that's grown, it's absolutely brilliant. Shahnaz, on the other hand, when she was 2, her dad tried to kill her because she was a girl. And so her mom basically took her and they ran away and came down to Nagpur. And she's from a conservative Muslim background. So it was very difficult to convince her parents to actually get her to play football because she'd have to wear shorts. That might seem ridiculous to us, but it's just mad the amount of things we have to fight against to actually get these kids just to play. So she was on the team to Rio, and she won the Fair Play Award, which is, in my eyes, probably the best award that you can win at the Homeless World Cup, purely because it shows how far you've come in life. I was fortunate enough to accompany the team to Paris this year as a manager of the Indian Homeless World Cup team. And so, I guess I'll give you a few anecdotes as to how the trip actually was. So we finalized the team. And we talked to the kids, and we're like, okay, you kids are going to Paris. And all the kids are like, yes, yeah, they're all excited. One kid comes up to me, and he's like, so how long is the train journey to Paris? These kids didn't actually realize that we would be flying there. There is no train to take from here to there. So that's the kind of change that actually was brought about in their lives. So we book our tickets, and we're at the Delhi airport to board our flights to Paris. It's an Indian Airlines flight, so as usual, they mess up, and they overbook the flight. So all 20 of us are upgraded to business class. Yeah? Yeah, so the first time the kids are flying, they're flying business class. That was the first time I've ever flown business class. And so the kids assumed automatically that a flight seats are going to be like business class. Yeah? So when we were coming back, they were put in economy. And they come up to me and they're like, seats are not comfortable, food is not great, the flight attendants aren't good looking enough. I'm like, he comes to me and he's like, you should have booked in those seats only. I'm like, dude, do you know how much that costs? Do you know how much this costs? So it's that kind of an innocence, and it's that kind of brilliance that actually accompanies this entire experience. So we go to the Homeless World Cup in Paris, and we're put up in a youth hostel. And all of us, it's a line of rooms. So you have the Palestinian team, you have the Indian team, the Paraguayan team, the Australian team. So it's like a line of people. So breakfast was a veritable madhouse. We'll have the German guy talking to us in German. We'll be like, yeah, good. And then he'll be like, I want bread. I didn't want good luck. So, mad things like that. But it's still brilliant, the amount of cultural exchange that was possible there. So the opening ceremony of the World Cup was actually on the Stade de France pitch. They actually, for those who don't know, this is probably one of football fans' meccas. The '98 World Cup final happened here. And we were on the pitch, so it was pretty much a pinch self moment for me. Even more pinch self moment was when I actually got to meet, next please, when I actually got to meet with Emmanuel Petit. He's the guy who scored the third goal in the 3-0 defeat of Brazil. So we were basically sitting there. I was looking at him, not knowing what to say. And he's an Arsenal legend. I'm looking at him, not knowing what to say. Like a typical 13-year-old girl who's just seen Justin Bieber for the first time, probably. And I'm like, stuttering away, and he's like, yes. I'm like, so which end did you score in '98? And he actually takes me through the entire goal. I was like, soon. Another very interesting incident happened. So the Brazilians were basically the team to beat in the World Cup, as you might imagine. And they were basically enjoying their football, loving the way that they were playing. and destroying teams left and right. Yeah. In the Homeless World Cup, goal difference doesn't actually count. So it doesn't matter if you win 15-0 or 1-0. It's just the points that count. And if teams are tied on points, to decide who goes to the next round, they basically look at fair play criteria, which is how you've treated your opponents, which is how you've respected authority, which is how you've let the other person play. So basically, they don't want the kids who come there to lose confidence by losing 10-0. So they always tell the other team, if you're ahead 10-0, let the other team score a few goals so that they feel good about themselves. Because the Brazilians probably didn't know that. And before the game, there were a lot of rumblings of discontent all over the pitch. People were saying, Brazil, be nice, because, we were the Indians who don't know anything about football, and they were brilliant. So, people are saying, Brazil, be nice, treat them properly, and things like that. So we line up for the pre-match, national anthems play. We're standing there waiting for the teams to come, because we were the designated home side, so the Brazilians had to come over and shake our hands. So they just filed past us without even looking at us. I'm like, okay, what's happening here? They're going to trash us, and they're not even giving us the courtesy of a handshake. So just as I was wondering, the entire team lines up, turn around, face us. The Brazilian captain steps up, says, un, dos, tres. The entire team bends down and says, namaste. I mean, I think that's immediately after that. So you can see what the reactions of the girls are. That a team would actually, take the effort of finding out what is actually the culture of the country and imbibe it and actually make the gesture. Of course, we lost 14-1. The Australian team, they were one of the stars of the show. So this particular game had to end, it officially ended 8-7. Although they actually scored one more, and it was 8-8. But the scorers didn't take that into account. And by mistake, we were declared winners. So we actually went up to them and we offered them a replay or at least a penalty shootout. And they, our kids were celebrating. They didn't know. As the manager, I went and offered them a replay. They told me, look at the faces of your kids. They're just so happy. And these are the players saying it. They're so happy. And if at this point we go tell them that you have to play more, and if they lose, that would just break our hearts. So they actually let us move on. They let us play in the final. This was the semi-final, by the way. They actually let us play in the final. And that's the kind of gestures, and it's just the warm, open heart of people who are there. It's an absolute brilliant event. Next, please. See, these are the kind of people. Kenny, he times his family vacations every year to go to the Homeless World Cup every year. She was the coach of the Paraguayan team, a Paraguayan under-21 international, who was absolutely brilliant with the girls. So the number of people that I meet, Harry, Jonathan Regler, Adam, these are just absolute brilliant people who I've had the privilege of meeting. So to conclude, one second. You said Mahadevan. So the topic that we were, the theme for the day was supposed to be invent the future. I thought about it and I tried to fit the entire presentation to suit that. But I realized it didn't actually fit. What the Homeless World Cup does, what development through sport does, what slum soccer does, is not exactly inventing futures. What it does is it reinvents futures. The kind of futures that these kids would have had would have been extremely bleak if they hadn't come under sport, if they hadn't experienced sport. So I think it's absolutely